It's our honor to have you here with us tonight. We'll go ahead and start. We'll have people join the call, but I know that you have a limited time with us this evening, and we're so appreciative of your time. So we'll begin our program and say good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our 6th lecture in the Admiral James W. Nance Foreign Policy Lecture Series presented by the Jesse Helms Center. I'm Jeff Atkinson, the Vice President of the Center here in Wingate, and we're in for a real treat this evening. We'll introduce our featured speaker in just a moment, but first we'd like to have a few words from our President, Brian Rogers. Brian.
Thank you, Senator Scott, for joining us, and I want to thank you. You got a great staff assistant and Paul Bonicelli, who's actually come down and spoken here at the Jesse Helms Center many years ago. So he's full of many tales, as you well know. What a great man. So
he's around the corner. He's doing fine.
Oh, okay. Well, he good. Hope to see Paul at some point in DC. But I just want to take just 2 minutes and tell you why we have this lecture and why it's named after Admiral Nance. James Wilson Bud Nance actually was born just down the road here from the Helms Center in a little town called Monroe, North Carolina, in 1921. The same year as Senator Helms. And Admiral Nance used to say he and Senator Helms were 2 months apart and 2 blocks apart. Senator Helms' father was chief of police in Monroe. And during an interview in 1992, Admiral Nance said that his definition of police brutality was when Big Jess told his grandmother when he got into trouble. So had a lot of fun and knew the family well. He attended NC State University for 3 years, but graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1941. He was then assigned to the USS battleship, USS North Carolina, and served there through the remainder of World War II. And then after World War II, he served as a flight instructor at the Naval Air Station in Pensacola, Florida, as you well know that place very well. And then after serving tours as a test pilot, he worked as a naval officer on the staff of the commander of the U.S. forces in Europe under General Alexander Haig. He attained the rank of Rear Admiral in 1970. His last tour of duty was as Assistant Vice Chief of Naval Operations. He commanded the USS Forrestal and was a veteran of World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam. He was awarded 2 Distinguished Service Medals and the Legion of Honor. When he retired from the Navy, he served as President Reagan's Deputy Assistant for National Security Affairs. And then in 1991, his old friend Jesse Helms asked him to come out of retirement and serve as the staff director for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on the minority side. And then in 1995, when Senator Helms became chairman, Admiral Nance served as chief of staff to the committee. He wanted to work for free, but had to work for a salary as per the Senate rules. And he was paid then minimum wage of $2.96 a week. And then after the cost of living pay increases, he was bumped to $4.53 a week. And then Senator Helms often joked that Bud was worth every penny. Senator and Mrs. Helms would be so proud. We honor Bud Nance, and he was such a kind and full of leadership, but also full of humility and grace. And we also really want to thank the John William Pope Foundation for funding this lecture. We would not be able to do this without them. And so we're grateful for that. We're honored, Senator Scott, you take a few minutes and speak with us. We enjoy your work and impressed. I know Senator Helms will be very impressed about what you're doing. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jeff, and you can, he's got some questions and you all can speak.
Very good, Brian. Thank you so much. Tonight's guest speaker knows firsthand what it's like to struggle for a living. His father was a bus and truck driver. His mother worked as a store clerk, I think at JCPenney, if I'm not mistaken. Their family lived in public housing in Kansas City, Missouri area. After graduating from high school and then community college, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy, where he was served aboard the USS Glover as a radar man. He used the GI Bill to go to college and eventually law school in Dallas, Texas. While still practicing law, as he and his wife pooled their savings together, started the Columbia Hospital Corporation. And when he left, it had become the largest healthcare company in the world. In 2010, after having experienced Florida's economic collapse, he made the decision to run for governor, a businessman with no political experience. That year, Rick Scott was elected governor of the third most populous state in America. And in 2011, he was sworn in as the 45th governor of Florida, reelected again in 2014. And then in 2018, then Governor Scott challenged an incumbent Democrat senator for a U.S. Senate seat and wound up beating him by 10,000 votes. Every vote counts, doesn't it? Today, Senator Scott represents the proud state of Florida. He's a member of the Armed Services Committee, among other committees, and serves as the chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the Honorable Rick Scott. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
There's no shortage of things that we could talk to you about this evening. I guess top of mind, though, just the news of the day. President Biden had a frank talk with Russian President Vladimir Putin today about the buildup of Russian forces along the Ukraine border. Have you all been briefed about that, or is there any insight that you can share of what's going on in that part of the world?
Well, we've had a classified briefing on what's going on, what Russia's doing, and it doesn't appear that that anything changed today. It doesn't appear that that anything Biden said had anything. I don't think Putin takes Biden seriously. I think it's I think we've got a big issue on the Ukraine border right now, and I think the United States and Europe, they're going to have to wake up that Russia's not our friend. We've got to understand that whether you're talking about what Putin's doing or what Xi's doing or what the Ayatollah is doing, or what's happened with Diaz-Canel in Cuba or Ortega in Nicaragua or Maduro, we got enemies, and so we either better have a military that can defend this country and our allies, or we should say that we're concerned about democracy around the world. It's one or the other.
You mentioned China. The president announced this week that the administration would not be sending any official representation to the Winter Olympics in Beijing in February because of China's human rights abuses. China is now vowing to boycott or retaliate for the U.S. diplomatic boycott. You've been critical of China in the past. Do you support the president's decision?
Well, it's about the least thing he can do. First off, what he should have been doing, and I've been saying this for quite a while, is that the President of the United States should be very clear that the Olympics should be moved. They should be moved to a country that believes in human rights. I've asked the IOC to move the Olympics. I've asked the NBC to not air the Olympics. I've asked all the sponsors of the Olympics not to support the Olympics. I don't believe we should boycott it because I don't think we should be hurting our athletes. Because that's all we would be doing. So I think Biden's done the very least. I mean, he won't stand up to Xi. I mean, if you look at what China's doing, I mean, they just walked in and took away the basic rights of the Hong Kong citizens, and we did nothing. We continue to know that there's 1 million Uyghurs in prison. We continue to watch what they're doing by threatening Taiwan. We continue to watch them take away the basic rights of the Tibetans. We hear all the stories about them harvesting organs and selling them from prisoners. We watch all the technology they see. We watch them build a military and steal over our military technology. And what do? Nothing. I mean, we ought to be very clear. The government of China has decided to be our adversary, and we need to stand up. One thing we all could do, don't ever buy another product from communist China. And then highlight the people that are actually standing up to them. I mean, the government of Australia at least has the guts to stand up to them. Ours doesn't.
You introduced an amendment to the 2022 National Defense Authorization Act that's designed to protect Taiwan. I believe it's the Taiwan Invasion Protection Act. Tell us what that's about, please.
Stop this ambiguity stuff. Are we going to defend Taiwan or not? Right? That's number one. We're going to defend Taiwan. Number two, we ought to do everything we can to make sure Taiwan can defend themselves and make sure their allies in Asia, Japan, South Korea, everybody over there has the ability to be able to defend themselves against the government of China. She's a thug. He doesn't care about your rights. He'll steal everything you've got. Everything, every time he opens his mouth, it's a lie. And so they don't comply with anything, whether the agreement to give the basic rights to the Hong Kong citizens, or whether it's the WTO, or whether it's being honest with the WHO. The guy's she's a complete liar. Why are we doing business with them? Our government should stand up for Americans. People are more worried about making the last dime. I'll tell you who I appreciate. I appreciate Enes Kanter Freedom, the basketball player that's putting his career on the line to talk about the atrocities in China. I commend Peng Shui. But she was willing to stand up and say, "Hey, look, I was sexually harassed by a communist official. I'm appreciative of the WTA." Say they're not going to do any more tournaments. That's what the NBA ought to be doing. But the NBA is worried about, they want to sell more sneakers. They care about their basic rights, their human rights, but nobody in China's human rights. They don't care. They just want to make the last dollar.
Let me move on to another hot spot in the world. There are some other amendments that you're proposing in this NDAA, an amendment on Afghanistan, along with the purchase of drones and assisting the Coast Guard. That's three important things there.
So this is our government. We ought to find out exactly what's happened in Afghanistan. All right. We ought to be a bipartisan, bicameral, make sure we have put people on committee that want to just get the facts, whatever the facts are, good or bad. Right. Because look at the withdrawal was a debacle. So what have we done right? Because what I don't want to do, I don't want to have another Afghanistan. You only learn by getting the facts and make sure you don't do it again. I'm a business guy. I don't want to make the same mistake twice. So then on the Chinese drones. When I came up here 3 years ago, the DJI, a Chinese drone company, had 85% market share in this country. So we're buying their drones so they can surveil us. How dumb are we? So mine is to say that the federal government will not buy any more Chinese drones, period, or any other drones for countries that want to harm us. How many times do you want to buy something from a country that wants to do you harm? And by the way, every time we buy something from communist China, we're not helping the people of China, we're helping the government of China. So they can build a bigger military to defeat us. That's what we're doing. And so I don't want our government to buy any Chinese drones, period. It's pretty simple. Some of this stuff is so basic. So if you're in business, you say, hey, look, all my competition, why don't you just stand around with me and I'll show you what I'm doing so you can defeat me or beat me. Yeah, right. We're not, as a business person, you're not that dumb, but our government is.
Let me ask a little bit more about Afghanistan. What is Congress doing to hold the Biden administration accountable for the failed withdrawal of Afghanistan?
Nothing. What their goal is they think, oh, it's a new media cycle. People forget the debacle. This is the first time in the history of the country that I know of that we sat there and left American citizens behind. And when they came and testified, when Milley and Austin came to testify, Secretary of State's office came to testify. They knew people needed to be evacuated early, but they thought that would look bad. So American citizens were just left as pawns, right? And then they lied to us. They said, no, we would not leave Americans behind. Oh, but they did. Then it wasn't that many people. Then it was. But I'll give you how bad this is. So I've been complaining about not getting good information on who the heck did they bring here. So we couldn't get it in a regular briefing. So they made a classified briefing. So what I'm going to just tell you is completely classified. 79,000 people were evacuated out of Kabul, right, and brought to the United States. I think it was about 5,000 of them were U.S. citizens. 22,000 of them had special visas. Now, the reason I can tell you this is in the hearing, they told me none of it was classified. You know why they didn't classify it? Because they didn't want the media to hear it. I mean, and are they telling? And by the way, all those people that came, we don't know anything about their background. We because do you think the Taliban is helping us get people's background? Probably not. So on top of that, we don't. A lot of them didn't have IDs. And by the way, once they got here, we let them leave our military bases and go wherever they want. We don't know where they are. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, this stuff makes no sense. I've gotten so fed up with this administration and their complete lies. Like Secretary of Homeland Security says, the border's secure. And I said, Secretary Mayorkas, you're it. And you're the only person in this country that might believe that. And then when we had this class briefing, they told me, oh, everybody that's brought to the United States, if we bring them to a state, we let everybody there know. No, they don't. I was a governor. I was governor, and they told me point blank, when they bring refugees to a state, the governor, the mayor, law enforcement has no right to have any information. Period. But they'll tell you the meeting they do. Yeah, they've done it twice to me so far, just in the last month and a half. But will they give me any information? No.
You represent an important state to our nation's defense efforts. For those who may not be as familiar, tell us about Florida's military presence. You have something like 20 military bases?
Yep, we have 20 military bases. We have 3 unified commands. So what I did when I was governor is I would do a base commander meeting every about 120 days. And I would bring all my agencies and said, how do we make sure you can fulfill your mission here better than any place else?
Are you finished?
So when I worked to make sure that for both our active military and for our veterans, we were the best state for them to either serve or be veterans. We have 1.5 million veterans in the state, and we passed significant legislation in state tuition, all sorts of things to help our active military and our veterans. My dad served in the 82nd Airborne. He did all the combat jumps in the Second World War. He told me how wonderful foxholes were and the food and getting shot by the Germans was. And so I decided to join the Navy because at least I would get 3 minutes a day. So my goal is to make sure we take care of our active military and our veterans.
You serve on the Armed Services Committee. What is that committee responsible for?
Our primary goal is to make sure we have the most lethal military force in the world that can make sure we can defend the freedoms that we all cherish every day. That's it. We have to be the best to be able to defend us and our allies and nothing else. That's their only job. That's their whole job. That's what the military's job is. And so you would be very disappointed in our some of our meetings where we talk about a lot of things besides make happen a lethal military force. And so but we work hard. I'm gonna work hard to make sure that we have the most lethal military in the world, to make sure that we take care of our military members, make sure we take care of our veterans. And I've got a lot of colleagues on armed services that want to do the exact same thing. I think Jim Inhofe has done a wonderful job as both the chair my first 2 years of armed services and now as the ranking member.
What are some of the other hot topics on armed services that you are dealing with?
Well, what I'm working on is to make sure that we have a military force that can defend us against Russia, defend our allies against Russia, against North Korea, against Iran, and against China in particular, and any other bad actors, any terrorists around the world. So it's making sure we have the dollar amount, and make sure we're investing in the products and the technology that's going to make, keep our military men and women safe, but put them in a position that nobody wants to cross us. The best military is a military that all of our adversaries say, whatever you do, you never cross the United States of America military, because they will kick your butt.
We're getting some texts from some of the folks on the call, Senator, and one of them I'd like to read to you now. He is asking, shouldn't we return to the two China policy by recognizing Taiwan and urge the rest of the world to do so also? Wouldn't that help in Taiwan's defense against the communist mainland?
Absolutely. We ought to be very clear. Taiwan is a vibrant democracy that is our ally. And if you thug Xi and communist China want to do anything, it's good. You're going to have to come through us.
Those who are on the call, we invite you to text us and we'll ask the Senator a question for you. Our text number is 980-290-1512. I'll repeat that, 980-290-1512. You said your father was in the armed forces. Is that what prompted you to decide to go in and serve as well?
You never know why, but I tell you, my dad was so proud. I mean, I bought him every book, every magazine that I could find on the 82nd Airborne. Here's a guy that had a 6th grade education, but read all the time. He was a bus driver, then a truck driver, and he loved his time in the service. All those reels of the military in the Second World War. I think he watched every reel. He loved that stuff, and I tell you right now, unfortunately my father passed away in 2007. I think 2007. My family is still fighting over who gets his uniform. I have a shadow box of all of his medals that I just bought. I knew what medals he got from his DD 214, and I have a rifle from his company. They believe his rifle was demolished, but here's a guy. I mean, so I have an M1 in my office, and they're heavy, and he parachuted down. I'll tell you, one of the neatest days of my life was I got a call from my then 20-year-old daughter. She was in St. Mary Glace, and she was in a little museum there, a small museum, if any of you've been there, and she found a picture of her grandfather. And when she told them who her grandfather was, they were so appreciative. And so it was just a neat day.
Let me turn to politics for just a moment. We also mentioned that in addition to all your work and the great work that you're doing in Congress, you serve as the chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. That's certainly keeping you busy. How's that going?
It's going well. I have one job: get a majority. The nice thing about the Senate is I don't have to meet all 100 senators because a lot of the Democrats don't talk to me. So it makes it easier. I don't have to remember much about them.
There's only 50 that have to meet.
I mean, Schumer doesn't acknowledge I exist. Durbin, Huron, a lot of them. But anyway, so my job is to make sure we get a majority. So I got to keep the 20 seats we got, and then we got to make sure we win at least one. I think we have we're outracing the Democrats. We have raised in the first 10 months. They told me we couldn't raise money. The first 10 months this year, we raised $85 million. We've had half our money is, if any of you have donated and you get any texts or emails from WinRed, it works whether you like them or not. We had just in October, we had 260,000 individual donations. And so we've got great people running around the country. We've got primaries, they've got primaries. I think we're going to have a nice Republican majority next year. And then we'll be in a position that we can do good things. And that's what we have to do.
I'm getting another text here, and the question is, with much of our consumer goods being manufactured in China seems to be a hot topic for us tonight. What steps can the U.S. take to increase manufacturing here?
The first thing we ought to do is I have a bill called appropriately the Prime Act, and it would require all of our online resellers to disclose country of origin, because the American public is fed up with communist China. If they knew where products were made, they would buy products made either in America or in one of our allies rather than communist China. But if you've tried to buy these things, Amazon and now the other online resellers, they won't. It's pulling teeth to find out where things are made. So we ought to be doing that, and then we ought to be making sure that we talk constantly about where your drugs are manufactured. And guess what will happen? You, as a consumer, who know that communist China is where all the fentanyl's coming from, it's coming across our southern border, but manufactured a lot of it in China, you will stop buying their stuff because their goal, their goal is to kill us. And they're doing it. 100,000 people died last year of drug overdoses in this country. So put that in perspective. Based on fentanyl, primarily produced in communist China, 1 out of every 3,000 people in this country died of a drug overdose last year. I mean, we got to wake up. And so the consumer is the key. Government should stop buying anything from China. If you want to be an American company, as an example, McKinsey, the consulting company, they consult with communist China and our military. How dumb are we? I mean, would you do that in your business life? Oh, yeah, you're going to help my competition, but I want you to help me too. Yeah, right.
Let me go back to politics. A question came in asking, as chairman of the NRSC, what can we do most to help? This is a person asking on the call. And where are the most competitive races we should support?
Yeah, so here's where it is. I think that the 3 hardest to defend, and we will defend them, will be North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. I think the best pickup opportunities are Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and New Hampshire. So I think those 7 states are going to be the key to control the Senate. There's no reason we shouldn't win all 7 of them. We have great candidates on our side running. The only one where we might have another incumbent that will get in is Ron Johnson. He hasn't announced. I think he will run in Wisconsin. He's not told me that for sure, but he sure is working his butt off, and he sure cares so much about the country. So I think he'll run. But we got great people. We got a lot of people running in Pennsylvania. We got 3 people running, all seem good people in North Carolina. We got good people in Georgia running, in Arizona, Nevada, New Hampshire. A lot of people thought Chris Sununu would run. He's not, but there's other people going to get into that race. So we're going to have great candidates. We're going to win. We just got to. And by the way, my job is to take everybody's money. You can donate to nrsc.org. We'll take every dollar you got. We won't waste your money. I'm here to win races, period. nrsc.org.
You are a terrific fundraiser. I know we're up against the clock. Let me ask you this one final question. When we planned this conversation, we hadn't necessarily planned it would be on Pearl Harbor Day, but we certainly be remiss without recognizing that this is the 80th anniversary of the Japanese attack on the United States, December 7th, 1941. I can still hear Franklin Roosevelt saying that. What are your thoughts as you reflect on the significance of this day in American history?
Well, your heart goes out to the families that lost their loved ones, and it's too bad that it happened. We lost a lot of loved ones in the Second World War. I'm appreciative that my adopted dad came back alive, but he doesn't think many of the people he went over with came back alive. It was a really tough war. But thank God there's people willing to put on the uniform and defend our freedom. I got married really young. I got married when I was 19, so I already have grandkids, and my oldest is 10. And he is going to be a paratrooper. He's going to be the first man on Mars. He's going to be a paratrooper and a policeman. And I'm excited to watch my grandsons, and hopefully I have 1 granddaughter so far. I hope they all serve in the military, because I'm very proud that people are willing to say, I'm willing to sacrifice my life so my family and other families can live the freedoms that we all cherish in this world. So thank God there's men and women that put on the uniform. I'll tell you one of the neatest things I get to do. Every year I get to nominate 40 people for the academies. And if you want to be optimistic about our future, you should participate in the interviews of these young people, men and women. They are unbelievable. I mean, they are hell-bent on defending the freedom of this country. And I hope they all get in, because everybody we've nominated, they're just wonderful people that care about this country.
Senator Rick Scott, thank you so much for the time. We certainly appreciate this.